What is up, YouTube? This is Odd Job Entertainment bringing you another art tutorial. Today I think I have something pretty cool to show you guys. Obviously on the screen is none other than the Tesla Cybertruck. Love it or hate it, it's starting to grow on me. It started off looking super ugly, but I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. But we are going to take a look at a way in which we can get some approximate measurements from a picture, so that we can then use the method discussed in the X-Wing time-lapse video to be able to redraw it using the plan method that I showed in that video. So first things first, we need to start to establish some sort of horizon line. So what I did here is I took some points that were repeatable across the different axes on the Cybertruck. And one thing that you have to keep in mind, as you'll see here, is it's not like I'm going to get a singular point that I can use, okay? There's a couple reasons for this. One of the biggest ones in this case is because we're working from a photograph, it's likely caused by some distortion in the camera lens shape itself. Because we know that the lines should be straight, but they aren't, and that is what is causing a little bit of this distortion. However, we can work around that. You can see I picked several points, as many as I could find or cared to draw, and going in both directions. And then I marked the intersections to kind of see where they were grouping. And then based off of that, I determined what worked the best by using a combination of drawing a horizontal line to see where I could get a solid set of points that cross, and also kind of looking over here where I had more points at where it was creating kind of a nexus. There was more lines crossing here than anywhere else. I didn't have as many points of reference on this side, but you can see doing that horizontal line gave me an approximation as to where I could put that horizon line and where I could put my horizon points. So cleaning that up a little bit, we now have a horizon line. Okay. Next thing we want to do, we want to start to try and box up our Cybertruck. What we're trying to do is get an approximation of the various measurements based off of the height for this drawing. So I picked the outer constraints for the X and Y axis, and I obviously drew a line to mark those. Then we figure out along this vertical line that is created through the intersection of our box, or it's the front corner of our Cybertruck with respect to our box, and we want to figure out a 90-degree angle. So I literally just took a 90-degree guide, found a point where my 90 degrees crosses this point over here, and the line. And we draw these lines like so. Now, this should start to look a little familiar if you've watched my perspective cube tutorial. We're doing essentially the same thing here. And so these next few steps should be very familiar. For that reason, I'm going to go through them a little faster than I did in that video, because if you need any more help, you should look at that video. But doing a little bit more cleanup, now we're focusing on what we have here. And we have our points that the arcs create for us. We have a height for the Cybertruck determined by going from the bottom of our box to the point that intersects with the top of the Cybertruck drawn to our horizon line. So this line segment here is the height of the Cybertruck in perspective. We map that out in both directions or on either side of our height map. And then in the next step, we draw our perspective cube reference lines that help us figure out where the corners of our cube are going to be. Okay. So I can get rid of this layer and this one to clean. Yeah. So now what we're going to do is we're going to draw a perspective cube. Okay. So up until this point, everything should have been review as far as the perspective cube goes. So I'm going to erase these, clean it up a little bit. because now we have everything we need reference-wise to keep expanding on this technique. So the next thing that I did is I extended the lines of my cube so that I could have some handy reference lines to work with. And I figured out the midline by doing an intersection. We've done this in the ellipse video as well as many times in the X-Wing time-lapse, but essentially you just draw a line from corner to corner, corner to corner, and then the intersection that is created gives you a midpoint in perspective through which to draw your line. And since this side is connected to the same cube, we can just continue the line from this point here over to the horizon line. Okay. So now what we have is these three lines on both sides of the cube that extend to infinity. That is useful because we can then start to take measurements in the form of further perspective cubes. So what I did here is and I'll recap this one real quick. Whoa, what happened there? My toolbox disappeared. Okay, well, I'll just do it for you this way. What I did is I drew a line from this point to this point and drew the line, and it ends up crossing here. What this line represents then is the next end line for a perspective cube. So essentially what we've drawn here is a 3x2 array of these perspective cubes. We can use those we can use the last cube where we no longer see the Cybertruck and get some more precise measurements by subdividing those cubes further. So here we see that the front corner of our Cybertruck roughly happens at the halfway point between this point here and this point here, which means that this front section is about 1.5 perspective cubes in width. We can keep this going, and we can determine that if our height, which is our base unit in this case, is 1, which is what you commonly do with a base unit, we can then figure out some approximate measurements based off of these perspective cubes. Okay, so we look at this line, and going from the front of the Cybertruck to the back, we're crossing 1, 2.5 perspective cubes, which means that our length is 2.5 heights away from this point. And then we can do the same thing with the front. Like I said, it's 1.5 heights in width. Now, hopefully this is all starting to coalesce and come together, but in future videos we're going to use these measurements to be able to do an approximate drawing of a Cybertruck in any sort of orientation. With these measurements, we have everything we need to be able to reorganize this drawing however we may see fit. Anyways, this is Odd Job Entertainment. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it and working this out. And please like, share, and subscribe for more content like this, and hit that notification bell so that you are able to keep up to date on the content that I put out. I really appreciate the support that you guys give me. And this is Odd Job Entertainment, signing off.